I'm planning to go to Hawaii on my next day off, but actually my mom and sister are coming with us. So I was hoping to leave the house in your care.
Wait, so you're saying I have to stay here and house sit?
Yeah, my mom and the others said they want some family time.
I was just left there, stunned. Maybe this marriage has no future. Okay, I understand. But are you really sure about this? My name is Sarah, and I'm a 32-year-old. I met my husband Mike through a group date organized by a friend. I consider myself a plain person and am quite introverted when it comes to relationships, so I couldn't really express myself among the more outgoing participants at the group date. But Mike, who is bright and friendly, came up to me and started a conversation at my pace, which made me feel comfortable. I was touched by his thoughtfulness, and we exchanged contact information and gradually became closer. Soon after we officially started dating. A year and a half later, he proposed to me, and I was on top of the world. I had been feeling a bit of pressure because I was over 30, and I was truly grateful that he proposed to me. Without any hesitation, I decided to marry him. However, there's something about the first time I went to greet his family after we decided to get married that still bothers me to this day. His mother and sister live in his parents' house, and I heard that his father passed away a few years ago. His sister is around my age and had moved back home after getting divorced. When I visited, his mother and sister welcomed me with open arms and big smiles. His mother warmly said,
"We've been waiting for this reunion for so long. Come in, don't be shy."
Despite it being my first visit, I felt at ease in the warm atmosphere of their family.
Sarah, that outfit looks absolutely lovely on you.
You're working, aren't you? Women who thrive in society are commendable.
Those encouraging words from both of them made me very happy. But suddenly my sister-in-law asked,
Sarah, how much do you make a year?
Huh? Well, I couldn't hide my bewilderment at the sudden question.
We're family now, so it shouldn't be a problem to ask, right?
Sarah works for a major corporation and has a pretty good salary. To be honest, I've recently changed jobs and my income has decreased. I think Sarah's annual income is probably about twice as much as mine.
Oh, how wonderful.
That sounds like Mike is being supported by Sarah.
Wait a minute, sis. Actually, I'm expecting my salary to increase soon.
I wonder when that will be.
Sarah, you are now an important part of our family, and we hope to have a long and happy relationship with you.
Yes, I sincerely feel the same way. Thank you, and I look forward to it as well. It was difficult to sort out my feelings, but in the end, I finished my first meeting with his family in a friendly atmosphere. Although there was some discomfort, my love for him will be unchanged, and we proceeded with our plans to get married. At that time, I had no idea that this decision would lead to significant difficulties later on. We didn't have a wedding ceremony. I wasn't particularly keen on having one, and his income wasn't that great. Instead of spending too much, we agreed to save for the future. So, we started a joint savings account and began saving systematically. These savings were intended for our future children's education and our retirement. However, sometime after we got married, I found something shocking when checking our bank book for regular accounting. $3,000 had been withdrawn. I had no memory of withdrawing this amount, so it must have been my husband. I confronted him immediately. What's this about? Why did you withdraw such a large amount without asking? Confused, he struggled to find words and started speaking uneasily after a moment.
Actually, do you remember me telling you about my sister's divorce and her return to our parents' home?
He hesitated, his face showing he was reluctant to continue. I listened carefully.
The divorce happened because my sister had an affair.
I exclaimed in shock. What? I was taken aback and stared at him intently.
She's been demanded to pay alimony and is still paying. There's still quite a bit left.
Stunned, I was filled with frustration. Why hadn't he told me this important detail before we got married? So, how much is left to pay? He hesitated, then answered,
Well, I think it's about $10,000. My sister only has a low-wage part-time job, and my mother only has her pension. They can hardly pay it back. That's why I wanted to help, so I...
His voice trailed off. I sighed deeply. My feelings were mixed, surprise and confusion about his sister's debt, his unilateral withdrawal from our account, yet understanding that his family's difficulties were now ours. I made a firm decision. Let's agree to support your sister to the extent we can afford each month. His eyes lit up.
Are you really okay with that? Thank you, Sarah.
He expressed his gratitude repeatedly.
This will definitely make my sister happy.
We decided to send $450 to my sister-in-law and her family every month. This arrangement meant that our savings would decrease, but we believed that once she finished paying her alimony, we could start saving money again. It was a path we chose to walk together as a couple, to support each other's families. We took this step forward together. However, when we visited my husband's parents' house, I saw something unexpected. There was a brand new designer bag, casually placed in the room. If it had been an old bag, I would have understood and wouldn't have thought twice about it. But this bag looked brand new. Where did you get that bag? As I asked, the faces of my sister-in-law and mother-in-law suddenly changed.
Huh? Oh, this bag. A friend left it here.
I see. Seeing their reactions, I was certain that my sister-in-law had bought it herself, and I was sure that the money we had been sending them was used to pay for it. There was a high chance that my mother-in-law had also bought something for herself. Lisa, how much is left on your debt?
Well, I think it's around $9,000.
Didn't you say it was $9,000 the last time I asked? My sister-in-law suddenly looked confused. It's been about half a year since then, so I would think you've paid back around $2,700. That should leave about $6,300, right?
Oh, yeah, something like that.
Her answer was filled with unease. This was definitely suspicious. I hesitated, but I knew I had to ask the necessary question. Could you please confirm whether the money we're sending is actually being used to repay the debt?
Huh? What are you talking about? What does it matter? I'm using it to repay the debt properly.
Her momentary loss of composure said it all, but doubts lingered in my mind. But looking around the house, it seems like there are more new furniture and appliances than before. My gaze shifted to a toaster at the edge of the kitchen. Isn't this the latest model toaster? At that moment, my mother-in-law's expression changed completely. It was more than a surprise. It was as if she had realized something. Their reactions spoke louder than words. I took a deep breath, knowing I had to speak my mind clearly. If the money we're sending isn't being used to repay debts, but rather for personal satisfaction or entertainment, I must ask you to stop. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law were stunned into silence. Their silence was confirmation enough that they had been taking advantage of us. Breaking the silence, my husband, who had been quietly listening, suddenly stood up and raised his voice.
Hey, what is this all about? I can't believe it.
His anger after finding out what his sister and mother had been doing behind his back was completely justified. However, in the next moment,
Why do you insist on making my mom and sister suffer so much? Sarah.
my husband unleashed his anger on me. Huh? Why? I was completely taken aback, frozen in place.
I've just been trying to make sure my mom and sister can live a better life, sending them money. What's wrong with that? Whether it's brand name products or the latest electronics, if it makes their lives richer, I don't see the issue.
I stood there, dumbfounded, struggling to comprehend my husband's irrational justification.
Family is something we need to cherish.
He said warmly, looking at his mother and sister.
Mike.
His mother called his name with deep emotion.
Mike, thank you so much.
His sister expressed her heartfelt gratitude.
Don't worry, I'll make sure to support my sister's happiness.
His mother and sister were overjoyed, tears streaming down their faces as they reaffirmed their strong bond with my husband. I can't be a part of this farce anymore. I decided to distance myself from the situation. Although I used to contribute a significant amount to his family's support, I realized the folly of wasting any more time on this and decided to cut back on the amount. My husband initially seemed displeased, but I stood my ground, refusing to compromise. Eventually, I minimized my contact with his family, which allowed me to live without stress. A year passed, and our wedding anniversary was approaching. With my recent promotion at work and our improved financial situation, let's celebrate our anniversary in Hawaii this year. I was fortunate to secure a reservation at a popular resort that's usually fully booked. After months of persistent calling and waiting for a cancellation, I finally managed to book a room. The inn had a quiet and serene atmosphere, perfect for the two of us to spend some special time together. The meal featured luxurious dishes made with fresh local ingredients, adding a touch of elegance to our celebration. As we eagerly anticipated our beach getaway, my husband made an unexpected suggestion 1 month before our departure.
Hey, about the Hawaii trip we talked about earlier, I was actually thinking of giving it as a present to my mom and sister.
Why would you want to do that? I couldn't help but ask.
Actually, when I told our parents about the trip, they were really angry, saying, "We live such a simple life, and yet you two are going on a luxurious trip just by yourselves? That's not fair."
But this is a special day to celebrate our anniversary. Why should the celebration take place without us? I just can't understand.
But leaving our parents behind and just going by ourselves.
I absolutely won't back down on this. You know how much trouble I went through to book that hotel, right? I've been looking forward to this day for months, overwhelmed by my determined attitude.
Okay.
He replied, but there was still hesitation in his voice. However, a few days later, he made another surprising declaration.
About the Hawaii trip, in the end, I decided to go with mom and my sister. So I want you to stay at home.
He said coldly. Huh? I was just dumbfounded and let out a sigh.
Mom and my sister said, let's relax just as a family. Plus, I was invited too.
He listed off these superficial reasons. I was just so disappointed in him that I couldn't even find the words to respond. I questioned whether there was a future in our marriage. All right, if that's what you want. Hearing that, he started talking excitedly.
Oh, you understand? That's my loving wife. Let's have a grand celebration for our anniversary once the trip is over, okay?
However, something inside me felt empty, and the passion that once burned bright turned to ashes. I immediately called the hotel to see if I could change the reservation. Luckily, they said it was no problem to use the same room, although the cost would be slightly higher. So, I changed the reservation to include only my husband's name. On the day of the trip, he left the house with a proud look on his face.
Oh, I'm off then. Look forward to the souvenirs.
As soon as he left, I was ready to put my plan into action. I immediately invited my waiting family into the house, and we began to gather both my husband's belongings and my own. We decided to send all of my husband's belongings to his parents' house, and I moved my belongings to my parents' house. After that, I left home, determined to start anew on a different path in life. The Hawaii trip was originally planned for 1 night and 2 days, so my husband and his companions probably wouldn't realize the situation until the next day. At 10 a.m. the next day, my husband called me in a flustered manner, just as I expected. Hello?
Wait a minute. Why hasn't the trip been paid for?
What do you mean? I just changed the reservation. I responded smoothly. The inn basically requires payment after the stay. That's the usual procedure. I explained.
What? We don't have $3,000 to pay right now.
His voice was trembling as he spoke. Oh, that's quite a predicament, isn't it?
Why are you so calm? If we can't pay, there's no telling what might happen to us.
Even faced with his panic, I respond calmly. If you don't have the money, you just have to accept it, don't you? He looked at me in disbelief.
What? That's a cold thing to say, even to family.
I don't consider you family. That's the reality. He was baffled and lost for words.
What? That means?
Yes, it's over. We're getting a divorce. My declaration was unexpected for him.
What?
He raised his voice in disbelief. I've already canceled the room reservation. Your belongings have been sent to your parents' house. I stated facts, one after another. The divorce papers are also included.
Why would you do something like this?
He stuttered, flustered. You're the ridiculous one, ruining our precious anniversary. My voice was calm but firm. In the future, all of our savings would have been taken by your sister and mother. I can't accept such a future. My voice grew stronger as I expressed my anger and disappointment. So, this is the end. Our marriage is over. He opened his mouth, hey, wait, but that was all. I cut off his words and ended the call mercilessly. Afterward, his calls appeared on my screen several times, but I never answered once. Time passed, and eventually, I received a call from the police. The news was that my husband, his mother, and his sister had been arrested. I explained that I was already proceeding with the divorce legally and living separately from my husband. I strongly wished to avoid any further involvement with him in this situation. On the other hand, it seems my husband made desperate efforts to raise the necessary funds for his release by asking for help from friends and relatives. Ultimately, thanks to their efforts, the funds were gathered and my husband was released. Unfortunately, the fact of his arrest became known at the workplace of my husband and his sister-in-law, resulting in the loss of their jobs. After being released, with lost income and accumulated debt, my husband had to face the divorce negotiations. I had a sufficient income and savings and could easily afford legal support, but he did not have such means and had no choice but to agree to the divorce. Although he received a certain amount of money through the property division, it was clear that the money wouldn't last long for him, unemployed and obliged to live with his mother and sister. With an arrest record, finding a new job would also be a challenge. It was the result of his own choices. After all these events, I've started anew. I moved to a new apartment for one and am now enjoying my single life. Currently, I am focusing on my career rather than romance, dedicating myself to my job.